Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary.
Is it a good idea to personally name call somebody, make fun of them with a nickname, Rocket Man, somebody who is as unstable as he is believed to be?
If I were giving the president advice, I would have said avoid using Rocket Man. We know the leader of North Korea is erratic, to put it kindly. That kind of language, I think, is risky. Okay.
The president tweeted, "Just heard Foreign Minister of North Korea speak at UN. If he echoes thoughts of little Rocket Man, they won't be around much longer."
But that room is supposed to respond like this to the great dictator?
So we know that he is an unstable man who has nuclear weapons.
You're talking about Trump now.
He literally threatens war on Twitter on a weekly basis. Sometimes he goes as far as to threaten what sounds like genocide. We will rain fire and fury down on North Korea.
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
Donald Trump has absolutely no idea how to handle this specific situation, or really anything regarding U.S. foreign policy and how to deal with potentially hostile countries throughout the world.
So President Trump became the first U.S. president to step foot in North Korea. I bet you nothing's going to come from this. That's a totally fair criticism, and that's probably true. So President Obama and the First Family are doing a historic visit to Cuba right now. It's the first time in 88 years that an American president has been on Cuban soil. Incredibly important, and it's something that shows you what diplomacy can offer in the long run.
This has almost become the Obama-Castro summit here in Panama City, Frederica. It has been history in the making, and as you said, after a half century of Cold War relations between these two countries, and not really any sort of relations to speak of, they've been adversaries for a long time. Interesting to hear, some of the talk about how close Donald Trump and Kim Jong-un were during this entire experience. It seemed like almost a bromance to me, almost like what he had with Emmanuel Macron a few weeks ago during that state visit. They seem to get along really well, and it's no surprise to me that afterwards the president said that he feels that Kim Jong-un is a very talented man. He was talking about how they have this excellent relationship, and I think that was on display.
It's a sign that decades-old enemies can one day change their tune. That's the U.S. national anthem being played on Cuban soil.
Pamela with me right now in studio. This is really symbolic of change.
Absolutely. It's a game changer. It's certainly a scene setter and a milestone.
President Obama flew the 747 over to Cuba today. And I don't know if you heard this. It just came out an hour ago. He's landed in Cuba. And Raul Castro, or Fidel Castro, but Raul Castro, who's the head of Cuba, wasn't there to greet him. No, there was nobody. He landed the plane. There was nobody there to greet him. Folks, what are we doing? What are we doing? Number one, he has his people call up, say, who's going to be greeting the president? If they say nobody, you don't go until somebody's there because you don't want to look like a fool. So President Obama landed in Cuba, and the head of Cuba, who was there for the Pope, and he was there for other dignitaries that come in, but he wasn't there for the President of the United States. I mean, we are amateur hour, folks, amateur hour. And honestly, Obama should have turned the plane around and left.
Donald Trump is awash in the afterglow of his firstness. First president to take his daughter to North Korea on a work trip.
People are worried about the economy. They're worried about their jobs. They're worried about finding new jobs. They're worried about their salaries. And I think they just want to see government work. I don't think they could care less about who advises the president. They want to see the president focus on what they're focused on.
It was Donald Trump, Ivanka Trump, and Jared
negotiating
And Tucker
with
Carlson was
and
in
Tucker
country.
Carlson negotiating with a dictator.
And I think they just want to see government work. I don't think they could care less about who advises the president. They want to see the president focus on what they're focused on.
That look on Donald Trump's face as he's fawning over a dictator could be ripped straight out of the promotional photos for one of his reality shows.
It was a striking image. President Obama in Havana's Revolution Square with a giant outline of communist icon Che Guevara looking down. A gesture to a troubled past on a day President Obama focused on the future.
Because this is definitely Obama 2.0.
I mean, Kim Jong-un has played President Trump beautifully. I mean, he knows exactly how to get what he wants from the president.
So this is a fantastic door opening and historic occasion.
Let me start with Cuba. In President Obama's statement on Fidel Castro's death, he said, quote, "We offer condolences to Fidel Castro's family, and our thoughts and prayers are with the Cuban people." Is it appropriate for the leader of the free world to offer condolences of a brutal dictator who killed his own people as well as Americans?
Well, I think what we have seen in the last number of years is an improved relationship between the United States of America and Cuba. The United States of America has relations with China. We've had relations with brutal dictatorships all over the world. The goal right now is to see that we can improve our relationships with the people of Cuba, to do what we can to improve their economy, and to make sure that the younger generation does better than their older generation. I don't want it simply to be a photo opportunity. The whole world's media was attracted there. What's going to happen tomorrow and the next day? He has weakened the State Department. If we're going to bring peace to this world, we need a strong State Department. We need to move forward diplomatically, not just do photo opportunities.
So you're okay with him offering condolences. If you were president, would you have said something similar?
Yeah. Yes, I would have.
Good evening tonight from Havana, Cuba, where history has just been made. President Obama touching down, Air Force One landing here in Havana, an image unimaginable not long ago.
But now, the American president using Twitter to set that meetup with Kim Jong-un, leaving the world to wonder, are we less safe today than we were before Trump decided to play nuclear negotiator?
His historic visit rich with symbolism and filled with high expectations.
President Trump made history and television drama, meeting North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at the most dangerous border in the world. But was anything more than friendship achieved?
Once the world held its breath over Cuba, President Obama arrived in a country still waiting to exhale.
President and First Lady and their daughters coming off Air Force One in Havana, Cuba. For decades, an image unimaginable.
The president's critics have pointed out that, he has a history of understanding reality TV and drama. How is this perceived besides a photo op on the ground there?
It is, and believe me, President Obama has done probably hundreds of these over the course of time. So I think it was a historic feeling in the room. It was really interesting to hear him respond to some very difficult questions about human rights, about Cuba's record, and it really showed that there has been some progress made in terms of engagement and a willingness and ability to discuss some of these tough issues we haven't been able to do for some time.
Exactly. The meeting seemed well choreographed. President Trump walking from the South Korean side, Kim Jong-un from the north.
Cubans gathering on dampened streets, hoping to catch a glimpse of history.
Truly an extraordinary scene there, John. This, of course, was classic Trump, the master showman in his element.
They can hardly believe it. I mean, it's something most people say they didn't expect to see in their lifetime.
A historic first full day in Havana.
This was the dramatic headline, the dramatic photo that President Trump wanted. He's a great showman. He pulled it off.
The president in Cuba, making history. Now reporting, George Stephanopoulos.
Good morning, and we are breaking in now for a moment of history, the official arrival ceremony for President Obama in Cuba.
With one dramatic gesture, President Trump became the first American president to set foot in North Korea and also the first to set up an impromptu meeting with a North Korean dictator via tweet.
But we are about to see President Obama greeted there by Raul Castro. There's President Raul Castro, President Obama, together for this moment of history.
with North Korea, Donald Trump has no strategy, and he hasn't brought the American people to this moment where we can embrace what we saw this weekend. Had he done that, regardless of party affiliation, we would be saying, you know what, a reduction in tensions with North Korea is a good thing. And
Cuba, again, forget about 90 years. Yes, that's the last time. But this was a never before. Since the revolution, this has not happened. And that's what Cuba is today. It is its revolution history. And many here, generations of people here, never thought this would happen.
And right now on Andrea Mitchell Reports, step by step, Donald Trump becomes the first sitting U.S. president to walk into North Korea. But is he about to give Kim Jong-un a major concession beyond a priceless photo op?
You know, Barack Obama is not a guy who's going to freak out about where he stands in a Gallup poll. He's very comfortable in his own skin. He knows who he is. And he's very well aware of what his talents are. And that's not Donald Trump.
And it quickly became more than the quick handshake that President Trump had proposed. President Trump did not detail any commitments or concessions from North Korea ahead of the upcoming talks, which last stalled in February. But the president appeared to be betting his personal relationship with Kim could achieve what former presidents had failed to accomplish.
Then he had almost an hour of private talks with Kim Jong-un. They say they're going to restart stalled diplomacy. Will it actually lead to anything this time around? We certainly don't know. But what we do know, this played on the strengths of both Trump and Kim, who both love photo ops. They love moments. They love symbolism. And we got that in spades today, Brianna.
Including Tucker Carlson. Look who went. Tucker Carlson was in the entourage with the president, conservative commentator Tucker Carlson. He was along. I don't know if he was in the press corps, he was in the friend corps. I have no idea what's going on here.
He was there because he thought he was doing an interview with TMZ. And he ended up at the DMZ. It was the whole...
And it's such a debacle. The letters.
Such a mashup. Such a mashup.
Listen, and you know what Tucker Carlson actually said? He said, well, to be a president means you have to kill people. Seriously, what? That was his response. That's his response. I'm sure your folks could pull up the exact quote, but that's his response. And that's Fox News. That's who they send to the DMZ.
Here. And the main one is getting out from underneath some of these sanctions, which, makes it really hard for, to govern a country.
Tucker, just one thing that's the type of thing that does make some people nervous, though. President Trump recently made a comment about having a certain type of good chemistry with Kim Jong-un. And that may be true, but when you're talking about someone who has been responsible for so many human rights abuses, does he run a risk with that kind of language of A, coming off to Kim Jong-un like he's pandering to him to an extent, or B, upsetting the American public that elected a president that they want to stand firm and be tough on those human rights violations and stand firm on American principles, which exist in virtually complete contrast to how the North Korean regime is run?
Yeah, I mean, there's no defending the North Korean regime, which is a monstrous regime. It's the last really Stalinist regime in the world. It's a disgusting place, obviously, and so there's no defending it. On the other hand, you got to be honest about what it means to lead a country. It means killing people, not on the scale that the North Koreans do, but a lot of countries commit atrocities, including a number that we're closely allied with. So, I'm not a relativist or anything, but it's important to be honest about that. And it's not necessarily a choice between, the evil people and the great people. It's a choice most of the time between the bad people and the worst people.
I sat with him for 2 days. And the one thing he asked me to give Obama something to say and do one thing. He wants Obama to do one thing, call him.
Martha, this was certainly a first, but the big question this morning, how much did they actually accomplish?
At the end of their joint statements, President Castro grabbed President Obama's hand and lifted it into the air. The only problem? It didn't look like President Obama wanted to be part of it. He's kind of trying to shake him off. His arm and hand flopped down like a dead fish. At least that's what we're calling it. Twitter's dubbing it the awkward arm moment, with some calling it limp arm diplomacy. It was just awkward.
I am your voice.
The president, an avid basketball enthusiast, appeared to lose command of his jump shot, missing his first 14 attempts before finally sinking his 15th to a loud applause